Take a look at this clip. This clip just made a pretty vocal part of double gauge modelers very upset. Did you catch why? Focus on the movement of the locomotive's cab end, and notice how the chassis swings over the curve. Many people don't like that. I'm only mildly paraphrasing when I say this action is often described as completely ridiculous and unacceptable. But why does that sentiment have such a stranglehold on double gauge modelers specifically? A history lesson. Before 2005, all Hornby tender locomotives which had carrying wheels under the cab had pivoting trucks. It had to be this way because the curves supplied with train sets and even the curves with set track today are unprototypically tight. The major downside this arrangement does bring along is that it complicates the wiring, as these wheels also tend to pick up power, and that the truck leaves a big gap in the chassis. In general, the rear wheels being on a pivoting or pony truck is a prototypical depiction of the locomotives given this feature by model railway manufacturers. All locomotives, except LNER ones. LNER locomotives never had pony trucks. The rear wheels were on what is known as a Cartazzi set. Cartazzi wheels are fixed and do not swivel. The axle can move side to side, but the structure is connected to the cab. So, between these two depictions of Flying Scotsman, the Hornby die-cast version has the most accurate chassis. But this was only on LNER locos, as the Cartazzi wheel set was an invention of the company which would later be amalgamated into the LNER, the Great Northern Railway. London Midland and Scottish, Southern and British Railway Pacifics did have swivelling pony trucks at the back. So this LMS Iva Duchess is depicted incorrectly. Bachmann has a different approach to rear wheels. They mould their Cartazzi set slightly over scale, allowing a swivelling axle to be fitted underneath. Whilst this does not eliminate the problem of the back of the loco lurching over a curve, it does solve the problem Hornby have invented with the flangeless wheels fitted to the rear axles. On occasion, on poorly laid track, the carrying wheels will lose contact with the track. This means that there is a slight possibility that the flangeless wheels may drop between the track and cause a derailment in due course. Does this happen, and does it ruin models consequently? Absolutely. Does this happen often? Well, considering Hornby have stuck with the flangeless approach for almost 20 years, I will be the one to say it's an overblown issue. So to answer the question, why do some double gauge modelers think the fixed pony truck looks completely ridiculous and unacceptable, it has not been that way for very long. They are used to something else, ergo, new thing bad. But this brings along a second question. Which solution is better? Well, slightly controversially, I would say Bachmann offer the best of both worlds. Their carrying wheels stay on the track, whilst also avoiding that quite visible gap in the chassis, but the chassis is overscale. If you have imperfect track that bumps and bounces a lot, you will most likely find that the older Hornby solution fits the best. As the track rises and falls and goes into curves, the truck stays on the rails, at the cost of a poorer looking chassis. If you have generous curves or better track, or if you're not bothered by locomotives lurching over points or into curves, but are bothered by out-of-scale looking chassis, the new Hornby method will do nicely. At the end of the day, it comes down to a preference of running, not a preference of looks. Because setting aside that modelling is all about compromise, if you want to argue looks, which you will find is the way that these anti-fixed pony truck people argue, the rear truck being glued to the track, or being even a truck at all, is the one way that completely disregards how the real locomotives look. And you would have a great case arguing that is because technology has simply moved on. What about you? Are there modelling opinions that you think are overblown or are simply looking at the issue in the wrong way? Why don't you let me know in the comments? Maybe I will have enough material to make a part 2 to this video. Cheerio.